call the September regular meeting of the Inlet and Beach Protection Board to order. Agenda approval. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Approval of minutes of the August 22nd meeting. Are there any changes or corrections?
Nothing here.
Nothing from me.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve. Second.
So
All
that
those
was
in favor?
Tim and Mike.
Yep. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes stand approved as written. Status of the beach and inlets. Christie and Dave?
Yeah, the staff report is pretty long today, so I'm gonna cover it in topics. And if you guys wanna stop after each one to ask questions, that's probably the best way, because otherwise when we get to the end, you may have forgotten what you wanna say.
Great.
I probably will.
Okay, Hurricane Dorian visited us on September 5th. We had survey crews on the beach the following week, and ATM is currently quantifying the data. We got preliminary numbers from Fran to offer a cost estimate at the scoping meeting that the county had with FEMA last week. That estimate was right at $4.7 million for Category G losses. And for us, Category G would specifically just be the beach. There's recreational facilities, but it's the beach for us.
4.7 million just for Dorian.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The early estimates from Fran are that we lost approximately 197,352 cubic yards in the engineered beach area and 339,575 cubic yards for the entire shoreline.
So 340 roughly total, with almost 200 of that being in the Central Reach.
Correct.
Okay.
And those are early estimates just for him to give us a ballpark figure to walk into the county with. They'll still have another week or so to go back and look at all the survey transects.
Okay.
We spoke to, I'm sorry, I missed a sentence. We lost about 46,000 in sand fence and about 5,000 plants.
Dollars.
$46,000 and 5,000 total plants. We spoke to
46,000 in sand fencing?
Yes, sir.
So
But
we're-
that's included in this top number that I gave you, the 4.7 million.
Okay. Now, I'm just wondering, was there an area that was particularly hard hit?
The sand fence seemed to be down the length of the beach, but in the Central Reach area, instead of major damage, there's a huge section that is pretty much got covered up, and the recommendation there is to do an additional row in that area to catch.
Got covered up
Fine.
by sand.
Is that close to the east end? Is that where that is?
If I remember correctly, it's more in the middle part of the beach.
Okay.
We spoke to the FEMA Beach TAC, Bob Glasson. That's the one we had for Florence as well. They were here on Tuesday. He, Doug Kraft, and Jonathan Marshall. Doug and Jonathan are with the Corps. They did have to do a visual survey. It's a requirement where they come and do measurements for FEMA, but they plan to use our hard surveys, and we're happy that we had those in hand. It's just a formality that they have to visit the beach. And that's what I have for Dorian, unless y'all have additional questions.
Just let me add that the reason why this preliminary countywide assessment happens is that the president has to make a federal declaration for this windshield tool. So that's what this effort was in support of. It's an iterative process on getting a project approved, but that's we gotta get a federal declaration first. So that's what we're engaged in with this particular.
So that declaration that Tom Tillis supposedly, there's a little tip between Tom Tillis and I think the governor over who is responsible for that when they declared the federal, before the storm got here. How does that relate?
I'm just working on supporting the effort to get a federal declaration. I'll let Tom Tillis and the governor fight that one out. I got no idea.
Okay, you know what I'm referring to?
No.
Okay.
We really have our head down on trying to support this.
Yeah. So there's another.
There'll always be a fight between the governor and the
But it's a different,
Republican senator.
a
The
different-
Democratic governor and the Republican senator. It's one of them.
but it'll be a different federal declaration that's still needed, that's pending, right?
Absolutely.
Gotcha. Do you have any idea when that would be determined? You probably don't, right?
We don't have timeline.
And so then, is the plan to repair the fencing and replace some that's with a second row, or what's the?
That's what the cost estimate included, but we'll want to wait until we get a declaration to see if that's gonna have to be from our pocketbooks or if it will be covered federally.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions about Dorian? I will tell you that they already told me that they plan to replace the trash cans on the Strand after storm season, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, whatever Chris typically does, I don't want to speak for Chris, but they won't go out before the storm season's done. I don't know how many he puts out in winter, so I'm not committing the town to, yet we're putting all the trash cans back because that's a
Yeah.
Chris thing.
Okay.
Okay, so Florence and Michael worksheets are still held up in environmental review. Town Manager Hewitt took the opportunity at the county FEMA Dorian meeting last week to speak to one of the environmental representatives and express our frustration with the long process. This has been for approval. It sounds as if the problem has been with internal agencies working together in regards to FEMA to assimilate data. Sand fence as part of some permits for beaches and not for others was also mentioned as a backlog, with them trying to work through why that is. And so Town Manager Hewitt suggested that FEMA reach out to municipalities directly with questions to aid in speeding up the process. The representative was somewhat assuring that he expects projects to begin to move through and be released.
Okay. And I know you guys probably saw the article too that Carteret County both Bank Lawrence reimbursement was approved, but they thought theirs was under 25 million, so it didn't require another level of approval. That's what the article said anyway. So that's why it's on the slide. And ours ended up being over 25 million.
If you combine Florence and Michael, which I think they are trying to do, it does.
It was over 25.
Does anybody else have any questions on FEMA CRR flow line project status?
So what was the total of those two?
It was just over 25. I don't have.
25 and change?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hesitate to draw a correlation between Carteret County getting a PW approved based on the fact that their estimate is less than 25 and ours being more than 25. I would hesitate to infer that that's the rationale on Carteret County's. I don't know enough about that, but
Okay.
I would just hesitate on making an inference that that's why we got it and the other ones haven't, because as we understand it, there's a whole queue of coastal projects that are held up, and what we've been able to gather so far is that it really has to do with how things are, how the regulatory agencies are perceiving permitting aspects of projects.
Okay. Does anybody else have questions on flow mic? Okay.
Our the sand search is underway with ATM as the lead contractor, and then they have subcontractors that they are using. The sonographics data collection was completed before the storm. Athena is collecting vibrocores this week. Mr. Way contacted the town to let us know that he was recommending 5 additional vibrocores based on the seismic data collection. The additional vibrocores are recommended in order for the town to have 2 usable borrow areas, assuming favorable results from those. This is incredibly valuable for the project's success. One borrow area will have 21 vibrocores and another will have 9 collected.
And so the 5 are additional, and we already have the others, right? So we would already have 25 of those cores out of the total 30.
Well, they would have planned to collect those, but they need to collect 5 more based on his recommendations.
Okay.
From what he saw from looking at the first stuff that came back.
Can I ask if those are going to need a BOEM permit? Are they more than 3 miles out?
He didn't share that, and so I can't answer that question.
Testing and drawing vibrocores doesn't necessarily, it would be the permitting of that would use that data. If those cores are more than 3 miles out, if the area that we delineate is suggested and to be more than 3 miles out, that's when BOEM would get involved. But just putting a straw in the sand out there does not require BOEM.
Yeah. No, I was just wondering if we were gotten to the point that we needed to go more than 3 miles out.
Not yet. It may be that the holes we poke in the sand outside of 3 miles are not liable, and
Yeah.
we don't need to worry about it. But that's what this will show. Hopefully, it'll show.
And then we save those cores, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they're over in the Public Works building, over in the
You had
corner.
said that to me one time.
At $2,000 a piece, we're certainly not gonna let them get by.
How long does it take for them to analyze the data that they get from these?
From start to finish on, doing the original sono to having a report back with grain size analysis and everything, all that's about a year. It's about a year process. And actually what, which piece, how it breaks up, we could get that for you, but, it really depends on.
So are we looking at a year from now then, before we would have our defined area?
No, since we've already started.
Okay, I didn't know if you meant a year from the core sampling or a year from when we started.
It would be, it's probably 9 months, because I think we've been into it about 3 months now. Don't hold me to that hard case, but I'm
You know I'm writing it on
swagging
my calendar.
Approximately.
that. But I believe that Fran had actually submitted a Gantt chart previously that outlined that process. If
Yeah.
it wasn't to the core, it was to this board.
We've circulated that before.
Several times.
Mhm.
I would default to that.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions on the sand search? Nope. Okay.
Comprehensive long-term plan. The VOC heard a presentation from ATM at the September meeting. They decided to take the information to digest for the month, and it will be on the October meeting agenda for a possible decision on the document. While you voted on changes last month, the IBPB as a committee should make a recommendation for approval of the plan by way of a spokesperson speaking at agenda time during the October meeting. So I don't know if y'all want to nominate somebody, but part of your charter is for the recommendation part. You voted on the changes last month unanimously, but if you to finalize that, it would probably be nice if somebody stood up and spoke during the public comments for agenda item section, which means that you would need to be here to sign up by 6 o'clock in October. And I'm
Or we could all speak, right? Are you looking for somebody to speak as representing the board or as individuals?
David, you can correct me on this, but I was thinking that they said if you are like a organization, they wanted one spokesperson in those last set of rules of procedure or whatever they did, and you guys would be considered an organization. But I'll defer to what.
So then are you going to introduce it on the agenda after they get into the agenda?
There'll be there was a memo last month, but there'll probably be a short staff memo that says this is back before you look to digest it. Just something to accompany the agenda packet.
Because somebody's name has to be attached to it, right? When somebody's going to go up there and usually that's you, right?
Usually it's Christie. It would be a staff transmittal memo that here's a plan that the beach board's been working on. It was given to you last month. You wanted to chew on it for a month.
Mm-hmm.
You guys got a lot of work invested in this. I
Absolutely.
totally think that it's appropriate for the committee or the board to publicly take a position. The staff's just going to say, here's the plan that the board came up with.
Sure.
They voted unanimously that this is the plan that they were charged with developing and executing. I think that there is, a punctuation mark on that project to be made by the board, this board, the beach and Inlet board, making a statement that, it's a bit of pontification, but it's your work product,
Mm-hmm.
and if you want to take
And what are we asking them for? Input or
No,
adopting the
you're
plan?
adopting the
You're
plan.
asking them to adopt the
You guys
plan.
worked on the plan for a year now,
Right.
and it's time to fight or
It's
hold
time
the
to
line.
adopt it, right,
You know?
okay.
And if it's just my recommendation.
Okay. Would anybody like to volunteer for that, or?
I mean, I would not think that it overkill for the entire board to have a spokesperson and the entire board to
Just stand
up
behind that
it.
spokesperson.
I mean, if that's what you wish to do, I think that's totally appropriate. I'm not suggesting that, but I don't think that there can be too much emphasis placed on the importance of this plan moving forward, because it's a 10-year plan. It's a lot.
Yeah. And I'm ready to get rolling on it.
I say we all stand up and,
Yep.
and then, just because if there are if they come armed with some very specific questions, one or the other of us might be able to answer, maybe not all of us could answer, like Tim hasn't been here very long, so he may or may not, and
No, I agree. And I appreciate you guys showing up. Everybody was there last month,
yeah.
expecting it to be.
Is everybody around on the 15th of October? That's the next,
I think so,
that's the next BOC meeting.
unless the boss tells me different.
Well, let us be your boss for this day, okay?
So how about ATM? I mean, they had a big part of this. And
Well,
they presented it.
presented last month.
Fran is actually I think that Chrissy's going to cover this, but Fran is actually going to be presenting the results of the annual monitoring report and would be available to answer any technical questions that would come out of that. He volunteered that because one thing you got to keep in mind is that we're Winchestered on the ATM contract. They're done. If there's something comes out of the commissioners, you're going to have to crack the pocketbook and make some more money available.
Okay,
Fran's not on a retainer
right, to make modifications to the plan.
that.
They actually gave us extra meetings of coming down that was not included in the contract because we went past the timeline.
Okay, gotcha.
And by volunteering, that he's already here, and he would
So would we go on if we want to, if we vote this right now, can we request to be put on the agenda?
Well, that item is going to be on the agenda.
I know Fran's item, this item.
No, our item will be too.
Our item will be on the agenda. Okay, great.
Both of those will be.
Okay, good.
Right, yeah. It's two separate things.
Right.
ATM is doing the annual beach monitoring.
And our long-term beach plan will also be on the agenda.
Separate item.
Possible adoption.
That's right.
Right.
And there'll be a staff transmittal memo
Yes.
with that, and Christy will introduce it during the meeting, right? And what we're discussing is the.
So we're going to
public
stand up
comments
during public
prior.
comments?
Mhm.
We're not going to stand up during the agenda item.
I would say that the appropriate time is that public comment time.
Okay. Up front, the early one,
Mhm.
not the late one. Okay,
Right.
good. Because everybody's asleep. Everybody's asleep at the late one. Okay, got it.
So we get up and recommend that the plan be adopted,
Yes.
and then Christie comes on an agenda item and says, okay, we have the plan, now the commissioners need to talk about it and ask any questions.
Right.
That's gonna come later in the meeting,
Yes.
okay?
But then, let's just assume that a bunch of questions come out of it. Then,
It's up to the commissioners to decide how they want to format those questions.
okay,
You know, do they,
we're not going to have a question and answer session during the town meeting.
That-
Unless it's just a,
Typically, they don't answer questions back from folks during public comment. They're not required to. So they probably won't have a dialogue back and forth with you guys.
okay.
I can't.
So basically, during public comments, one person or the whole board is going to stand up and ask for the plan to be adopted, basically. Okay, no problem.
So, who would like to speak?
I'll do it.
Okay.
I mean, basically, I'm just standing up and asking for the board to adopt the long-term plan, right? I mean, or am I doing an overview or something?
No, the overview happened last.
It happened last, yeah. Okay, all right, good.
and
Yeah,
I
to serve
think,
as the champion for this.
yeah,
What's that?
Serve as the champion for this.
Right.
the magic word to use so that you're compliant with the charge is recommend.
Okay,
That's-
we recommend.
Because you developed it, and you recommend it.
I mean, unless you want to do it, Vicki, it's up to you.
No, but I like the idea of all of us standing up there.
Okay.
Because we all worked.
That's
really
fine,
hard
because
on
we
it.
all worked on it, we all,
It's been a labor of love. Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
So do you say anything about it being kind of the roadmap for the year, and then once a year have a formal?
I think you should do it. You are just
Update,
much more
review.
articulate about it.
No, I'm just,
No, yeah, I'll stand right behind you, we'll all
No.
be there, you do
You
it.
can- You have
I don't need
3
that.
minutes to say
Yeah.
whatever you want in support and recommendation of it. So-
I get all flustered,
Right,
I have
3
no
minutes.
idea what comes out of my mouth when I'm standing up there. I could start talking about terminal
but
drawings
you're
again.
a realtor by trade.
I know, but
You're
I
a
don't really make
professional.
public presentations of it.
Um,
I did in
neither.
my previous life, though.
So, you guys decide among yourselves. Actually, you don't have to decide right now.
Okay,
You could just, you talk among yourselves, and
Okay.
at night you can decide, correct?
okay.
It's gonna make it hard for my minutes. Cause right now it would be better if you guys made a decision today, but I can say they decided to talk
You
among
speak,
themselves.
and I'll help you with the lines.
Okay.
2 or 3 sentences.
Fine, that's fine.
So
I
you
know
guys
have a
will
lot
work
on your
together
plate.
on
Yes.
preparing the public comment
Comment.
remark.
Dean and I will work together preparing the public comment remark, and I'll deliver it. I think. Yeah, that's fine. I'll just be back from Wedding Central, so I'm sure I'll be all focused.
Okay, is there anything else on the plan?
Okay. The AIWW Lockwood Folly Inlet Crossing Bin Widener project. When we had our agenda setting meeting with Vicki and Mike, she asked that we go over this in detail from start to finish again to make sure everybody understands. And Also because, member Gibble is relatively new to the board, to make sure, because he came in kind of in the middle of the process. So I'm going to go back and recap everything. So the project's still on hold. To recap the project, it was supposed to happen this fall, winter. The AIWW crossing project is part of a federal project that includes several crossings throughout the state. They usually start in the northern part of the state and move down.
Okay, for Tim's, the crossing is the top segment there, not the, as David calls it, the cup of the dipper.
That was expected to yield approximately 80,000 cubic yards, with an additional 135,000 cubic yards available in the Ben Widener.
Which is the cup of the different.
We worked with the state and expedited funds through the MOA so that the Corps would receive the town's $295,000 and the state's contribution from the Shallow Draft Navigation Fund in the amount of $776,705. As a side note, we approached the county for half the federal share and a quarter was approved. The town was then notified that U.S. Fish and Wildlife was...
Excuse me. You said half of the federal shares, half the
I
local.
said half the local share.
Local share, okay.
Half the local
Or if
share.
I said federal, I got local on the sheet of
Half
paper.
the local share.
I thought she said a quarter.
Down they gave us a quarter, or they've approved a quarter, they ain't give us anything yet.
Okay.
Are we good?
Yeah.
The town was then notified that U.S. Fish and Wildlife was requiring a biological opinion because of the spit that was growing from the Oak Island side of the inlet. That meant that we got pushed to an option instead of included in the base for the Corps' contract. The town was informed by the Corps on 8/26 that when the bid opening occurred, the apparent low bidder actually did not receive favorable reviews from other districts when completing projects. The Corps was going to appeal to the SBA, that's the Small Business Administration, to try to prove the contractor was a non-responsive bidder. The second low bid was twice the independent government estimate, so it was not seen as a viable option. The Corps is waiting to hear from the SBA about a decision on the low bidder. That was supposed to occur this past Monday. David and I attended a SACS meeting Tuesday, 9/24 in Wilmington, and engaged with Brendan Dooley and Bob Kiesler on the matter. They had no update, but said if they received word prior to this meeting, they would let us know. Early on in finding out about the problem with the bid, David did engage with Porter Sproul, and we had a conversation with Earl Stockdale, who used to be the chief legal for the Corps. He said there is nothing we can do to truncate the process. We have to let it play out. This is the picture that depicts what would happen where it is the pipeline coming to Holden. So that's the update we have as of today.
So the answer is just sit and wait.
Well, and I don't want to be putting water or a wet blanket on the fire, because, and this is going to worry Vicky.
Oh, I'm already
We're already
If
worried.
I know what you're gonna say.
Let's see
I'm
if
with you.
we cashed out the apparent non-responsive guy, the next guy is twice the engineered estimate. So is it going to have to go back through a full federal contracting rigmarole? You know, what all's involved with that? Time, will they get responsive bids? But another option, and I do not know the answer to this, is what happens when that the second guy that's twice the amount is deemed to be a responsive bidder, and since it's a small business set aside, the Corps doesn't have any more money. What does that mean for the contractor? Are they going to come back to the town and want us to
Make
pony
the
up
difference?
the difference? I do not know, but we're certainly attuned to that, as that's a different ball game. That's a different ball game. If the project doesn't happen, I'll just go ahead and put that one out there. I have a problem with the Corps of Engineers Pioneers holding on to $400,000 of the town's money, because I can tell you that they do not invest those funds in T-bills, and at least I do have the option on
Make a little
escrow
money.
and making a little bit, off of it. So we don't want our money back, is where I am right now, because, there's a number of other, worries, concerns about, assuming that we were leaning into the wind on making this project happen. The Corps contacted us, and at the end of the fiscal year, the state got involved, Dr. Cordero. We, in good faith, have gone ahead and made our funds available so that this project could happen, and
Yeah.
we're
Frustrated.
we are subject to someone else's process. So, we're continuing to be engaged with the players at the Corps to make this project happen. Because you gotta remember, it's 200,000 cubic yards, it goes on the east end of the beach. The short version, 200,000 cubic yards goes on the east end of the beach. Our annual erosion losses are about 200,000. This just keeps the pump prime, is what it is. It goes to a number of other fundamental issues that it's important we get this every time that it happens. We understand that.
I have a question for you. On the bids, they bid both the crossing and the widener.
It's one contract.
Okay, they're both included in that contract. If they,
It was an auction for the widener and the first one that went out.
so when do you think the drop dead date on resolving this is regarding the environmental windows?
Well, it's, the environmental window, I want to say April 15th, but it might be March 30th. It's the turtle.
Right, that's what I'm wondering about.
It's going to depend on if the contractor can actually, execute a project. They certainly can't start before November 15th,
Right.
but there's mobilization involved in it. That's an industry, issue.
Do you happen to know how many other inlets they have on the same contract? Is it
I
just
want to
us?
say there's 4. It's not only
And none of them have been approved, right?
It's bid as one contract.
Okay.
It's bid as one contract.
Okay.
It hits the number.
Okay, good.
The critical one is the Marine Corps base. That's
Yeah,
the one that happens first. That's the one that's always happened. Historically, this contract has been let, and they work north to south, and we end up right before Easter-ish.
right.
And that works good for us because it's before the tourist season, it's still within the turtle window, and all the northeasters have
Passed,
cycled through. So, that niche window, how that whole thing is gonna hold up with this circumstance with the federal contracting, I can't even venture a guess.
And I'm trying to figure out the cost per yard then, if they came back to us and the whole total bid was twice, what the cost to us would be, it'd be significantly more, because the state won't pony up anymore, is that, or
Well, we
they
don't know.
might?
We don't know.
Okay.
Have we ever run into a U.S. Fish and Wildlife wall before with a biological study in any of the other projects we've done?
They're always a major player in any type of permit that you get. They're always a major player.
Well, we're looking at this from a essential fish habitat, was that the concern?
I don't exactly know if it was essential fish habitat because of this spit
Yeah.
sticking out.
Right?
I'd want to, without trying to get into the fish and wildlife arena,
Yeah.
my personal opinion is that it's nesting shorebirds.
That's right.
That's what I'm thinking.
So,
But But I don't have any validation on that, and I don't have any insight into how that plays out.
Is
The
it-
Corps is the integrator of that permitting effort.
It'd be their permit, they've got to worry about that, right? That's kind of what you're saying.
They're all.
Now, has it been back? Has the biologic come back yet?
It made it in time to put into the,
So we could get a copy of that and see what they're looking at.
well, that's the Corps is still working that. We haven't tried to enter into that. And really, I would prefer to refrain from getting into the Corps' business on that. I don't think that we need to start diving down that rabbit hole here. Again, we gotta let this process play out. And we're dependent on somebody else's working for us.
Right. So, to sum it up then, we've got a couple of options. We've got nothing can happen this winter. We could get one or the other, or I guess they'll have to do the crossing, right?
Well, maybe.
So we could get
And-
the 80,
and-
not the 135?
In the memo that I transmitted to the BOC the day after we had the conversation, and I didn't really get into this much detail here because that's already come out in town documents, and some things I'm leaving for people to glean on their own if they want additional information, as I can't cover every bit of it here. But one of the things that they listed as an option was just what he said, going back through another round of contract, and then the other thing was using their government plant. So those were the two things that were communicated. So I really don't know that we can answer that question. I think we're getting into questions that we can't answer until they decide what they're doing.
When is the next mowing meeting? You know?
It has not been scheduled yet. I checked.
Okay.
She's thinking the end of October, but it hasn't been scheduled.
Okay, so does everybody have a clear understanding kind of where we sit on that? Any questions? I just wanted everybody to understand kind of where this thing sits, because we've all, but we talked about how critical it is to get that sand on the east end, because if we get it there and it rolls all the way down the beach, it keeps the whole strand healthy, or as well as the erosion.
Do you feel there's something we could be doing that we're not doing?
Can't think of anything. Can you think of anything, David, that would be helpful?
After soliciting the former Chief Jag for the Corps of Engineers, who reiterated the fact that they ain't nothing we can do, I'm pretty sure.
We just hang out and wait. Keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, and that's what we do. I mean, we're in constant contact with Bob Keesner, Brandon Dooley, and Christine over at the Corps. So.
Okay, the SAC study, South Atlantic Coastal Study meeting was held Tuesday to glean information from stakeholders about the process, proposed products of the study, and problems and opportunities from the local, state, and federal level. We provided you 2 handouts from the meeting that we just got. It was not part of the agenda packet because we didn't know what they were passing out. The agenda packet had already gone out at that time. It's just for your information to take with you to know what's going on and stay updated. And we'll keep an eye on that study.
Does anybody have any questions about the SAC study?
Okay, the GRR study, we're still waiting to hear regarding Holden Beach receiving funding through the additional supplemental appropriation for disaster relief bill. The mayor received a letter from Artie James, Assistant Secretary of the Army, to confirm that they were in receipt of our request of July 31st, 2019 for a pre-authorization study. They were still in the process of determining which studies and projects will receive funding. Town Manager Hewitt confirmed with Christine Brayman at the SACS meeting on Tuesday that she did not have any additional information to put forth regarding either the study or construction. You guys good?
Do you want to address in our, everybody probably saw it in the minutes, that we were all supposed to read the August Porter Spur report and discuss these projects at this meeting? David and Christy, do you want to address that?
Discuss the GRR, yeah.
Well, that GRR, it's still in a state of flux as to whether or not a study will be funded. And I think that we need to get to that point before any sane conversation can take place. It's been an iterative process on signing up to be considered, but it keeps being delayed. And until we have a decision on that, I think we just got to hold tight and see how that plays out.
So without going into too much detail, when I personally look at the GRR versus what we're doing now and other options, I wonder why, just from the town perspective, why the GRR would be a good thing. Now, we put the letter in for the study, so from your perspective, is it
That's what the
just
study,
to do the study, to see whether it's worth it or not?
right, and that's what the study would tell.
Because
That
an
would-
initial glance of it, I can't come up with any justification to move forward with that, but there may be things I'm missing.
Generally,
I think we lose more than we gain.
well, but nothing, that hasn't been determined yet.
Okay.
Anything losses or gains hasn't been determined yet, I was an advocate for getting a decision on the general revaluation report, because technically, right now, we are still in that consideration, but it's been an open-ended decision. So, from management's perspective, it's about evolving potential options.
Okay.
Okay, and what's the harm in evolving a potential option?
When we're still fighting for Florence and Michael money right now, a year
The
later.
question comes, how about if FEMA craps out? We put all our eggs in the FEMA basket. For 40 years, and the analogy I draw is with the Inlet, the federally funded, federally authorized inlet maintenance. For 40 years, that dredging took place on the federal dime, with the town benefiting from the least cost method of disposal. 10 years ago, that dried up, started drying up. And so in order to create a separate mechanism for the eventuality that has now occurred, Plan B and Plan C had to be developed so that the town could continue to benefit from the least cost method of disposal. And that was the crafting of the memorandum agreement with the state and the crafting of the legislation that provided the funding for the the state portion of the contributed funds for that, to supply those funds to the Corps of Engineers so that the town could reap the benefits for inlet maintenance projects. So I see that analogy being similar in construct, because we need to develop and evolve potential options for the future if in fact, one, the worst case scenario, FEMA goes away, you know, as far as a viable strategy on recouping any losses from storms, or two, perhaps it's an augmented process. Worst case scenario, we are able to glean data from this study that's to our benefit, that we don't have to pay a dime for. So at this point in time, I believe it to be a no harm, no foul, you know, let study play out, and perhaps there will be, you know, something in it for us. Even if that a 50-year project is deemed viable, the town is not committed to participating in that. You know, once we get to the end of the study. And this is a study that's going to take 2-3 years.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's $1 million, a couple $1 million worth of so that the Corps in Wilmington is going to perform.
Okay.
So that's the short version.
Okay, I get it.
So I think we're preliminary in trying to set up a FEMA or GRR
Yeah.
pro and con kind of thing without the study even showing anything.
That does make sense.
Okay, so we've got the study, but then she also said she had a second ticket she submitted for this construction project from 1966. Has she said anything more about that?
Not
Yeah,
that
they
I
don't
picked
have
up on.
information back on either of them yet.
Okay. You know, at one point, wasn't Freem going to calculate yardage on that? Do you remember that from the meeting? He said, yeah, I can calculate that for you. Did anybody ever hear back on that?
I haven't. Now, that may have been a direct communication back to them. I haven't heard.
Okay. In regard to budget items, you guys had some wish list things that we went through back before the budget process happened. The keep off the doom signs have been ordered. Mats will be ordered in the winter. The UNCW scope of work came in Tuesday of this week, and we're currently reviewing it to make sure it matches with the town's discussion of what was wanted as study outcomes. As part of the budget, it was mentioned that plant variety may be a desire in regards to our vegetation planting this year. Right after the storm, I rode with Steve Mercer, who is our vegetation contractor of Coastal Transplants. The storm blew sand around and in the dune system and allowed for better viewing of plant variety that we have currently that are volunteering in the system. We have Croatan, Seashore Elder, Beach Morning Glory, and Bitter Panicum in our system, besides the prevalent sea oats and American beach grass. Mr. Mercer is recommending American beach grass be planted as a means to catch the fines that are blowing around after the storm. He thinks it should be planted pretty quickly, and we should focus more on that and sand fence than variety planting this year as a way to enhance our dune system. And as a side note, he did say that Seashore Elder had a 30% survival rate when introduced from the greenhouse, so it is better to let it be voluntary in the system than to try to introduce it.
So then how does that tie in then with the UNCW project?
So UNCW project is supposed to, in essence, give us a map of here's what we've got. a higher level, bigger picture versus just a drive down the beach kind of thing. In essence, it should back up what Steve Mercer is telling us, right?
Yeah,
At the end of the day, but I think so the Steve Mercer activity would be more immediate. UNCW is going to take a year, so next year you'll have a map, and we can sit with Steve, or the town can sit with Steve and say, hey, look, this is where this type of variety is, and here's the density of it,
Right.
and it should give us the, in stages, do it once to get a stake in the ground, do it again a year later, do it again a year later, to see how things are truly changing versus just the, sort of a higher level.
sure.
So I would feel we need to do both. Okay, take his expertise this year, but continue down the path
So
and
then
work with
next year we'll
UNCW
have
to do
the-
a survey. You'll have something to kind of work with and talk to versus just,
Yeah,
That's the way I see it play now.
I trust they've been doing this for years, so they know, and Steve Mercer as well. But now you've got the concrete data to back it up. And so if, 2 or 3 years from now, you want to go to the commissioners, or the town management wants to go to the commissioners and say, hey, we should dump another 20 grand into this, look, here's the evidence and the
Mhm.
proof, then they'll have the data to back it up, back the request up.
so then, the money's already budgeted, correct? 70 grand, I think, for plantings.
Correct.
Some of that, then we might get some back for this sand fencing if,
Sand fence is in a totally different line.
um,
But for FEMA, your answer to your question is
Yeah.
yes, for FEMA we might, but if there's not a declaration, we don't have nearly enough in the sand fence line
right,
to cover $46,000, I can tell you that. I think there's 12,500 in there.
There's what?
$12,500.
Yeah, and as the executive agent, what I will do is we'll reprogram vegetation into the sand fence line. That's if we don't get a declaration to do
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
we'll go ahead and trade off the vegetation. But there were only 5,000 plants lost, so
Well-
we need to do a mix of the vegetation, and that'll have to be a boots on the ground determination. But I can tell you right now, my initial gut feel is that if I don't get a declaration, then what we'll have to do is we're going to have to reprogram from the vegetation up to the sand fence line. Because sand fence stops at first best, but it's at a gross level,
yeah,
and then the vegetation is more refined method. But all that's subject to bidding. I don't know what it's possible yet, but that's my general going in for field.
but then for the plan then for this winter would be to use the money from the sand fence line and the vegetation line in some combination
Right.
to put additional sand fence and plantings.
Yeah, as it is always, it's just that the ratio may inverse. We got 70 grand in vegetation and 12,000 in sand fence. It may actually flip, something in between.
And really you're looking at replacing sand fence, not repairing, right?
There's repairs
And-
Okay.
and replace.
And augmenting.
Yeah.
Because
In
like
addition.
some of that's, only this high, and so you want to stack another
Sure.
row on top of it, which is what you want to do.
Okay, so, when do you think we'll know on the scope of work with UNCW?
We've had meetings, David and I need to sit down and review it and make sure it matches up with what the presentation said, what they're asking for, moving forward with getting something signed and getting back based on that. So I don't have a timeline.
It's going to be a month. I hadn't had a chance to go through it in detail. I've skimmed through it, but it's going to take a month to process it.
So is the scope of work for both of those projects, the plantings, the plant aspect of it, and the inlet?
Yes.
Is that the other one?
Yes.
And we received both, right?
Yes.
I do believe at first glance it's come in a small amount higher than the estimate was, but it's within a couple of $100.
Okay, does anybody else have any other questions on that? No?
Okay. The next thing is the CRC inlet hazard area and erosion rates, and our CAMA officer, Rhonda Wooten, and building inspection planning director, Tim Evans, went to that meeting last week. And I did have something written here that then ended up changing between 8 o'clock and 9:41. So the first thing I had said, there will be a public hearing on inlet hazard areas and oceanfront erosion rates on Thursday, October 3rd at 2 o'clock at the Harper Library in Southport. The next thing we got back from Ken Richardson with CAMA is that they're only doing the public hearings for oceanfront erosion rate update on October 3rd and not the inlet hazard areas. So again, for the minutes and for everybody writing, the October 3rd meeting's oceanfront erosion rate, not inlet hazard areas. December is the earliest we can do public hearings for inlet hazard areas, but will likely carry over into January given schedule and holidays. Depending on when finished, there is potential for the CRC to review public comments at their February 2020 meeting, but could roll over to their spring meeting.
Next year, y'all.
So that calendar that came out about the inlet, there was a calendar published about the inlet hazard meetings. They're not going to talk about inlets at that. Okay. All right.
That's good, because that's a week from today.
That's good because I'll be at a rehearsal dinner.
Alright, so is everybody clear on what we got between 8 o'clock and the update that we have now and when it's happening what? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, now, the whole idea of the inlet hazard area changes, that's not going to be under the purview of this board, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, I think we've said it was more for planning and zoning.
I'd still like to be at a public hearing
Oh, yeah.
since I live in an inlet hazard area.
You guys know what we're talking about, right? The CRC last year proposed changes to the inlet hazard areas on each end of the island. For Holden Beach, they grew almost double on the west end, correct?
Yes.
And significantly larger on the east end too. It takes in a whole lot
A little
more.
bit.
Pardon?
A little bit, yeah.
The
maybe.
east end.
The west end, on the ocean front, it goes all the way to that last set of canals.
It goes to the high 700 block. Yeah.
It was significant. Anyway, those homes would all be in inlet hazard areas, which brings its own set of complications as far as who can build.
Why are they doing the public hearings if they have to, if they're not ready in the inlets and they're doing just the ocean front, then they go back and do a whole nother set on the inlets? I don't know.
Off the top of your head, David or Chrissy, do you know what the erosion rate changes were for us? It looked,
We'd have to look at the map. I don't remember.
I looked and nothing like shocked me. I think the west end stayed at 2. I don't remember what your end stayed at.
I don't remember it, but we can look it off that out.
It just in a general impression, it wasn't the magnitude of the erosion rate, it was the breadth of inclusion.
Yeah.
That's what gets me, right?
That's what we have a problem with.
Especially when you look at how what they did to our island compares to how they treated other islands.
Other islands got smaller or larger moderately.
The one that really grabbed me was Mason Inlet.
Mhm.
If you recall, Shell Island used to be right on the brink there. Do you remember? Falling in. There was great angst over where it was going to be there. That's not even in there. It's like the line, only half of it's even in the inlet hazard area. So how crazy is that when our west end, I mean, they mapped out all of the vegetation lines, right? That they've had since like the 70s, I think. Is that right, David? Do you remember? They took a bunch of vegetation lines, they mapped them out, then they came back and took the most landward segments of those lines and created a hybrid vegetation line. And then they took those numbers and that was the raw line. And then they took it and they smoothed them with a rolling average of 5 transects. And the transects were every 82 feet, I think. 25 meters, so right?
Well, regardless of what the technique they employ,
Yep.
we do not support science.
Right, because there's no
Sci-
trending.
There is
to
no
it.
science behind
Yes.
it. That's our issue.
Position, yeah.
Right.
Well, my biggest objection was that it did not look at the trends. It looked at just the worst case scenario of where a vegetation line was and not how the islands have changed over time. So, but, so I guess you guys will keep us up to date if you hear anything?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
We'll, but it's, that's really a developmental services issue, but it's, it's got a corollary, informative aspect of it. We'll make sure that this board is cognizant of what goes on with that issue.
Is there any plans to notify property owners or anything?
Until, we initially, we brought it forward with the draft that had
Right.
been put forward, and that issue has been in a state of flux with the Coastal Resources Commission. I mean, you can see what a nightmare of miscommunication and possibility. So we have been purposefully not communicating that because we have to have real good guidance.
Yeah.
But as it gets tighter, we'll, put that out there, or at least establish a link on the issue on our website.
Gotcha. Does anybody else have any questions about the CRC meeting? Okay.
That was the end of my report.
I was gonna say, back to you, Christie.
Are you sure?
We're only on page 4.
What about this for the 23rd and 24th,
I'm sorry.
the schedule?
Vicky just asked that we hand that out. I think it'll come down under
Okay, sorry.
announcements.
Okay, good, sorry.
That NC Coastal Storm Damage Mitigation Fund at $21.5 million, have we heard anything on that?
I haven't.
Oh no, you're talking about NC. I'm sorry. I was thinking federal.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions on status of the beach and inlet issues? Does everybody feel like they're up to speed and? Okay. So then we'll move on to number 5, Inlet and Beach Protection Board announcements. I've got a couple. The Brunsko meeting is October 2nd.
That's next Wednesday?
Yep. That's what I had. Is that what you guys have?
Yes,
For some reason I've got written down 2 o'clock, but it's really 10 o'clock.
10 a.m.
So I plan to attend. I don't know if anybody else wants to go, so sometimes they're interested. American Shore and Beach Preservation Association National Meeting is October 22nd through the 25th in Myrtle Beach. Holden Beach will be presenting on Central Reach Project. That's what the colored schedule is that she handed out. Is the agenda, and I believe Mike and I are the only ones that are signed up to attend that, correct?
We've got a commissioner that's going. Mr. Butler, I believe, is attending. Is that correct?
Yes.
When I asked Christy to give us the schedule, it was because I wanted us to, I looked at this and there was so many, I want to be able to clone myself and be in a whole bunch of these presentations, but I was going to suggest that we divide and conquer, but if there's only 3 of us, then we'll have to, we can do that offline.
So if I decided to go, I'd have to register through you, Christie?
You would, but I would ask that you do that like yesterday because the price is about to go up substantially and I have to have time to turn a PO.
Oh, there's money, okay, never mind.
No, it's fine. I just need to know like today because it's the price right now when I register them is $520 a person.
Now, is there any way to register for just one day? You have to register for the
You
whole thing or
can
nothing?
do one day, but still all the prices are about to go up this week for the deadline. So
Okay.
if it's not like I'm not telling this board that you can't decide in 2 weeks that you want to go, but the fiscally responsible thing to do
Is to decide right now.
To decide now if you want to go or not.
Okay.
Dean, you should look at this because there's a lot of stuff that's really in your wheelhouse that you're into. Look at that agenda and check it out.
Is the cost cut significant if you just go one day? You don't know.
I didn't memorize it, but I can tell you really quickly if you give me a second to look it up. Maybe more than a second. It didn't give it to me on the first page. Rhonda, if you want to know about, if you're interested in a day and you want to know, it's going to take me more than a minute. I
Okay,
can look it
that's
up.
fine.
But it does go up on September 28th, which I think is a
Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And then the Byways Conference is November 12th and 13th in Rhinestone Beach. Okay, and speaking of the ASBPA conference, October 22nd through the 25th, our next meeting is the 24th.
Yes.
So, Christy, you had said that you wanted to skip it.
David had mentioned you guys could use the conference last month and let that be your, not whole business, but that would be a good opportunity to gain some insight into what other people are doing. It just gets difficult when we change the date of a meeting because we have to coordinate the room schedule, 5 people's schedule, and our calendars for other meetings. But
I think that you should look at it as a field trip opportunity and allow that to suffice as a de facto meeting for the month.
Well, that's an option. I'm a little concerned because we do have a lot of things that are pending right now, that are urgent.
It's a full day on the 24th, yes? The meeting is a full day on the the meeting in Myrtle Beach is a full day on the 24th, yes?
I'm looking. Yes, that goes till 5:30 on Thursday. Starts at,
8.
yeah. Starts at 8. Thursday's the big day.
Yeah, Thursday's the big day. I'm not sure how to read this thing. Honestly, it's a little confusing.
An engineer put it together.
That's a little confusing
Sure.
just to my crazy mind.
I know I had to go through with the pen and the highlighter and the... Trying to figure that out. Yeah, because to me it looks like on Wednesday it doesn't really start until 1 o'clock.
And actually, Tuesday is just a short course that you have to sign up for individually if you're doing that, so that doesn't really count in the actual conference. I mean, we give all the dates that are listed on the brochure, but Tuesday's not a.
So the real meat and potato day looks like the 24th.
Thursday, yes.
Yes, Thursday.
Christy, we did not pay for the Tuesday session, correct?
No, you had to sign up separate for that.
Okay. Do you know if they will release like the all of the presentations afterwards of everyone's presentation, you know, like a hard copy or a,
They normally put those out subsequent to the meetings. Now they're normally just, you know, PowerPoint.
Yeah.
They're not, you know, audio, video kind of things because I'm assuming they're in all these little side rooms is where the action takes place, and that's normally what's been my exposure to this type of event.
And a lot of these presentations are the same ones that are going to be given down in Savannah, you believe?
A lot of the players are the same.
What's the cost difference? I mean, $500, that seems like.
It's a lot to go to Myrtle Beach.
I don't know what the cost difference is for the one in Savannah. You know, the delta there is you don't have to pay for the
Hotel.
overnight expense.
Right,
So,
you just drive to.
yeah. The one in Myrtle Beach is definitely a much broader perspective and a much more detailed perspective, whereas the AIWW one is really only on the Atlantic Intercoastal Waterway.
Right.
This would have issues that would be West Coast, Texas, Hawaii, Northwest. You know, so you have a larger population, if you will.
Let me look over the agenda, and if I feel like I should take a plunge, and I'll make the request to you, Christy, by end of
day.
business today.
Yes, if you could do it by, I thought you were going to say tomorrow. I was going to say if you do it by end of business today, because what I'll have to do is take it, send it to finance for a purchase order. They'll have to turn it around, and then I'll have to enter the registration. So I was going to say tomorrow will be tight to work
Okay.
with, but if you'll do
Thank
it by
you.
the, yeah.
Appreciate it. Sorry for my slacking off.
Me
on
too,
looking at
Christy.
it.
But chances are I will only sign up for one day. So I'd like to look at this and see if maybe I could just sign up for the 24th. If it's cost effective, if the three of them are going and we've got coverage, then I don't need to go. But
I'll just depend on both of you to let me know by the end of
that's fine.
today.
That's fine.
okay, were there any more questions on the, that we need to?
Are we going to
decide
move
on
the
our
meeting then?
So do you guys want to skip the October meeting? Would you like to try and move it? My only concern about not meeting in October is we seem like we've got some important issues that are in flux.
If I put my town hat on, I mean, they're spending 4 days going to these other meetings, and they're actually presenting there. And, you know, then at the regular town meeting, we're going to have our recommendation made. I feel like we're getting a lot of, you know, work done in the month.
No, agreed.
And you know, those issues, you know, you have the commissioners meeting on the 15th.
Right.
And those issues, like the Lockwood Falls Inlet issue,
If there's any change,
if
it'll
there's
come
any-
up there,
It'll
won't it?
come up there, you know, we'll brief that out. The big thing, well, my hope for the board is to have the commissioners move that plan forward.
Yes.
That would be. and then
The long-term plan.
The other project is really the Lockwood Falls project, and, you know, that's beyond the beyond, and all we can do is kind of follow that. But we appropriate is to go ahead and look at the November meeting, because that's gonna fall during Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And what I would think would be a good thing is to perhaps bring back the exposures that you get at the Myrtle Beach meeting, and to do a show and tell at the November meeting. But I don't wanna, create a scheduling,
Did we
Right.
move our
ongoing,
Thanksgiving
I
meeting?
don't know.
No, I don't think we
It's
have.
on Thanksgiving Day
Right,
then.
and I
Dang
don't
old
know if
word.
we would do that in October. We were
Got
going to
it.
set our calendar in October, but if we don't meet in October, we need to do that now.
We definitely need to move our November, if we don't move our October meeting, we definitely need to move our November meeting, and I suggest we move it in rather than out. Like, to the second or third week of November, not after.
Normally that Thanksgiving is the 28th.
It
Is
is.
that correct?
Right, it's the
Yes.
day of the meeting.
And then the 21st.
The 19th is the Board of Commissioners meeting. Could we do the 21st?
I'll have to check on the room availability, but Thursdays are usually easier than other days, so I can check with the clerk. You could tentatively set it as that, and then I can
Okay.
check.
Everybody okay with? I'm
No.
sorry. No,
No.
you're not.
The 21st is the Atlantic Intercoastal Waterway thing, so if somebody ends up going to that, then
Yeah.
that's out.
But you guys gotta realize that you're a board.
Right.
So all you gotta have is 3 in order to
Yep.
have a meeting.
Well, I'm just wondering, if we split the difference, it would be on the 14th. Would that work?
I'm not gonna,
Didn't you just say
I'm not
something?
gonna be a naysayer for that, but here's how I'll explain it.
Okay,
The 11th is Veterans Day, the building's closed. The 12th and 13th, we're at Byways. That means that we're
Yeah.
having an agenda setting meeting sometime, I don't know when, and that the agenda packet on my part for all the work that I have to do has to go out by that week of the 4th through the 8th.
And the 14th is the pre-flight for the commissioners meeting on the 19th. That last couple of days
Right.
is doing agenda meeting and stuff for the commissioners on the 19th.
So from a staff perspective, if you're looking at Thursdays, the 21st is better, but I'll just throw that out, and
Okay.
it's at the discretion of the board.
The AIWW is where it's in,
Bam.
oh, so if you go to that, then you wouldn't be at the meeting, because you're kind of thinking about going to that, aren't you?
Well, I had kind of put that on the back burner
Yes.
because they had told me most of the content would be at this Myrtle Beach meeting anyway. So it didn't make sense to, again, spend money on hotel rooms to go to Savannah.
do you guys have preferences, looking at your calendars?
21st works for me. 21st works for me.
21st?
Works for me.
Okay. Well, I think we're gonna have to leave this kind of in the air, because you've got to check, right, Christie? We can't just flat out change it.
For the 21st.
You
Right.
could say, I was typing, I can say that the board decided to tentatively look at the 21st based on availability for the room. And then you guys can at least hold that date on your calendar.
Well, and I'm gonna go ahead and throw this in, is the meetings aren't tied just to this room. I've got an emergency center over there.
Okay.
That could,
We've done that before.
we've done
Yeah.
that before, so that could
That's fine.
be an option.
Okay, and then, as long as we're on the topic, December, I don't think anybody's gonna wanna meet the day after Christmas, right?
I'm not.
Nope.
So could we go ahead and tentatively pick a date for that?
I'm gonna move into the 19th.
That works for me. You guys?
Works for me.
Town staff? Does that work for you?
Try for the 19th for the December meeting.
So far, I don't have anything on that day.
Okay.
I'll tentatively commit to that, but that's getting near the last 2 weeks of the year for a number of staff members, and ghost town around here, but that's fine. Days are short, nights are long.
So back on October, the only thing I'm nervous about skipping that is the UNCW. I know it really doesn't tie into this meeting per se, but if we're going to give them the green light, it's one of those, the sooner the better, because of the whole coordinating with students.
That doesn't need this board's
No.
coordination on it. We're gonna execute it, refine, whatever.
And just keep us in the loop via email kind of thing?
Yeah.
So then, could we kind of agree to this, that we will skip our October meeting, but David, you would just send us a briefing or something to keep us in the loop?
Yeah.
Because whenever you have your town manager report at the BOC meeting, usually you're hitting the very top highlights.
Right.
Which is, fine, but you probably want more detail. So would that work then, to do that meeting just with a briefing then sometime in October?
If we've got any updates on,
Right.
on those issues that Chris has covered today, we'd like to do that.
Okay,
Perfect.
so we agree on that by consensus?
Yes.
Great. Okay, that's all I had on announcements. Did anybody else have any announcements? Okay, just to sum up, then we're changing our meeting for October. We're going to skip it. We're changing November to the 26th, and we're changing December to the 19th, pending everybody, this town staff schedule, if everything works. And Christy, then do you take care of notifying Heather that our schedule changed?
I have to check with her on the room, so she'll make a note for the room itself, but I'm actually the one that sends this. I mean, her stuff goes out on the Sunshine List, but as
Yeah.
far as something that goes to the paper, that's me. It goes out with the agenda. So they have our regular, this is our regularly scheduled, and if
Yeah.
something's different, they get that.
So then this becomes a special meeting because it's not a regular meeting?
We'll have to
check
ask.
with the clerk. see what
Perfect.
that is. And it may be that just that the regular meeting is rescheduled. So,
Okay, that's great.
if we need the chair to reschedule as a special meeting, we'll contact you on that, make sure that we do the right clerk.
That's what it's always so tricky. Okay, let's move on to the consensus of a short report to the board. This one may need some serious editing. Inlet and Beach Protection Board, IBPB, met September 26th, and the following issues and topics were discussed and addressed. Comprehensive long-term plan. The long-term plan is pending before the BOC. Approval or action was postponed at the September meeting and is expected to be on the BOC's August agenda, it says in there.
Are you changing August to October right there? Is
Yep.
that what? Okay.
You need to document how.
The fact that we're going to make a recommendation.
Yeah, let's. The IBPB will recommend adoption.
Yes.
Does anybody else have anything to add then on that topic?
Nope.
Okay. Status of the beach and inlet. Staff provided an overview of current and future projects, efforts and conditions, and issues relative to the beach strand and inlets. Highlights include the CRR FEMA reimbursement, the status of the $25 million FEMA Florence and Michael remediation project, now known as Central Reach Reimbursement Project, CRR project, was discussed. The approved project worksheets needed before work can start are still being held up in environmental review. It was noted that other communities have had their Florence funds released. Sand search?
Well, hold on just a second.
You want to take that line off?
Yeah, because, I mean, you actually use communities, and the one you referred to was only Carteret County. I was just, I mean, we're held up.
So let's just delete that sentence.
Yes.
I noticed that Rudy Rudolph is going to be at this conference.
Does anybody know if Rudy's gonna be there?
Yeah, he's there. He's listed.
He's giving a presentation on it? Okay. Well, that may be a
Which-
time to talk to him
Which
about.
day?
Oh, I can't talk to him. I'm sorry.
Makes you nervous?
Well, I'll talk to him. He's a good friend of mine. You can come stand next to me, Vicki,
I
and,
will. I mean-
I'll do the talking. We'll
Yeah,
figure
I'll
out
go
what
with
it
you.
is.
You gotta hold me back from the finger.
When is this that he's presenting?
Yeah, I saw his name on here, I think it may be.
I can't find anything on here.
I told you, it's
Where are
called
we-
the engineer, like you.
Where are we presenting?
He's
Thursday
Friday,
at 10:20. Thursday
I
at
just
10:20.
read that.
he's Friday at 9:00. Design and lessons learned, phase 1 of the post-Florence renourishment project for Bogues Banks. So, in theory, that should be his, it's on page 5 of 6. That should be him talking about what he's doing with
Here it is, right here.
post-Florence.
Active beach manager. I'm
Red
sorry.
Rudolph is
There it is.
the beach manager of Carteret. He's like
Ruby's Friday?
the person that everybody just does, that our beach board should aspire to be when we grow up. You know, he's just like, he's got it going down. Okay, so we're gonna take off that last line about that they received their funding and just leave it at is being held up in environmental review. Yep.
Yes.
Sand search, the sand sourcing needed for the FEMA CRR project is moving forward. Acoustic testing has been completed and additional borings will be needed. It will be occurring this week.
Yes, it is occurring this week. Process is
Are now
happening
being
right now.
taken.
Yep. Okay, that's all I had on sand surge. Hurricane Dorian, staff met with the county and FEMA to discuss damages. Total damages for the county and or state must meet certain thresholds to be reimbursed, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Total rough estimates are 600,000 cubic yards of sand were lost from the strand, and that's not right. We changed that to,
There's 400 and
339, 575.
overall, erosion was less than expected. You guys agree with that?
I don't know.
I'm shocked that there was as much erosion as there was.
I hesitate to make that statement because
I agree.
what is,
That was very
What is
liberating.
expected and,
well, and quantitatively, the surveys are going to tell us something. And remember, this is really just a first pass
Yeah,
at it, and it actually may be more. You know, because you have to understand that we only go out to depth to 5 feet
right, not to
laying depth,
depth closure.
and we also only use a few transects, whereas whenever we get to a full blown one, we'll use a whole bunch of transects and go out to depth of closure. So
And they made us come back and do that with Florence, so
Right.
there's always a chance that they'll,
When do you think that will, do you plan, is there one planned right now? I'm just wondering because
we're
the
going to
king
wait to
tide's
be told.
coming
that.
and it looks like it's gonna be worse than the one we had last month. When I'm looking at the tide levels and, I'm just, was wondering if we could get that loss, cause I expect we'll have a little bit of loss, if we could get that loss in the survey.
What do you mean, sneak some king tide loss into the,
Yeah,
No,
Well,
not
survey.
sneak it,
We're-
no.
We're going to wait to be directed by the court to obtain additional
That's
surveys.
not what I mean at all. God, that would be dishonest. Okay, there were no washovers, right? That's huge to me. Sand fences damaged in the storm were included in the damage report. Arroyos, which formed in several places on the strand during the preceding king tides and were deepened by Dorian, should equilibrate naturally.
And
No.
they are.
hey,
They are, yes, they are.
hey, wait, can I just stop you 1
Yep.
minute? Everything you're saying is correct, but we haven't talked about any of that during the meeting.
You're
So
right.
the part about washovers never came up,
Yep.
and the part about what you're saying right now.
Well, sand
So
fences
those-
damaged in the storm were included, right?
That part, yes, but,
Yeah, the arroyos were in our agenda meeting. So let's take that out.
and I knew that's where you were getting that from, but I just had to call attention to it, because, so I'm gonna take out there were no washovers.
Yep.
Sand fence is damaged, and what was the end of your sand fence?
The plans.
Trash cans will be returned to the strand after the storm. We did say that. But we're going to take out arroyos which formed in several places on the strand during the preceding king tides and were deepened by Dorian should equilibrate naturally. No action is planned.
Yeah, that wasn't discussed during the meeting.
And we discussed it at our agenda meeting, and I had down on my list, but we didn't say it, so. Okay, the trash cans will be returned from the storm. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about with Hurricane Dorian that we should include?
So should you say that ATM did all their surveying and took transits and are quantifying the data now to get a accurate?
ATM has
San
done an
Luis
initial
number?
survey.
Okay, just for the minute, for you to make your memo right,
Yep.
it was, our engineering is not, our survey is not ATM. They analyzed the data, but who's,
East
it's
Coast.
East
East
Coast,
Coast
sorry, that
Engineering.
wouldn't come.
Gotcha. East Coast Engineering, is that right?
Yes.
ma'am.
Has done an initial survey to be analyzed by ATM.
Yes, ma'am.
And did you say something about plant loss as well as the sand fencing?
Yeah, the estimate from Steve Mercer on plant loss is 5,000 plant, between 3,000 and 5,000 plants, but we used 5,000 for the estimate, so that's what I actually said in the meeting.
Steve Mercer estimated 5,000 plants were lost, and we also talked about the sand fencing. Do we know how much sand fencing needs to be replaced, or? did you
I would
say?
just go with the total $46,000 number, because that included repair, replace, and I guess replenish the adding the additional.
So the total for plant loss and sand fencing is estimated at,
I would just
$46,000?
use the big number and say
46,000?
no. The 46 didn't count the plants.
Okay.
It was
So
just the
51?
fence. I would say the estimate that we're using at this time is the number I read to you total for Dorian that has been submitted, which is
Okay. So the total for
Sure.
plant loss and sand fencing is included in the estimate?
correct. And is about 4.7 million.
Okay. Anything else on Hurricane Dorian? Okay, Lockett Folly, Crossing and Ben Widener, the pending projects were detailed and discussed. The Corps had previously confirmed that a dredging project would occur this winter and in place approximately 135,000 cubic yards of material from the Ben Widener and 80,000 cubic yards from the Lockwood Folly Inlet crossing on the east end, and funds were secured from the town, county, and state, which were forwarded to the Corps. Okay, so actually the county has not given the money yet?
Secured is probably a safe word.
Okay,
Just understand that they haven't given any money.
Gotcha.
But they promised we'll get through the project, so.
the Corps subsequently determined that a biological opinion, BO, would be required before the contract for the Ben Widener could be approved. The project was put out to bid with the Small Business Administration and 2 bids were received. One was too high and the other deemed non-responsive and disallowed. The project will be rebid.
No, it's sent to small business to make sure. We can't say it's disallowed. The Corps
Doesn't make that determination.
Yeah.
Okay. How should I just, too high and the other was deemed non-responsive, period?
by the Corps. It's receiving further evaluation through the Small Business Administration.
And is receiving further,
Evaluation through the Small Business Administration.
was there anything, trying to think how we should, I'm thinking expectation setting here. That, should we put the little flag out there that this is a concern, we're concerned about the project occurring?
Due to delays?
Or funding, or? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, of course, the longer it drags out, the more concerned everybody is.
Yeah, you're not paying attention to the details, you're probably thinking everything's go. But
It's not.
I think based on what I just heard you say, you could say the board is concerned about the project's feasibility based on timelines and details that need to occur, or something to that.
Of course, it's gonna mean they'll be knocking on your door to, you know, the commissioners anyway, to ask, is there anything we can do? Anything you can do, you know, we can, you know, meaning, you know what I mean?
Anything that can be done.
the board is concerned about the project's feasibility based on the timelines and
Delays.
Feasibility, is that the right word there?
Viability.
It's viability, it's not feasibility, we already know it's feasible, it's,
Should a sentence go in that town management has stressed that everything that's could be done has been done?
It's okay with me. Yeah.
And there's nothing our lobbyists, I don't know if that's the right word, nothing they can do to help, right?
Now, as a matter of fact, we affirmed with them that you gotta let it play out.
They knocked on all doors they could.
so town management has stressed that everything that can be done has been done. Okay. Core engagement. The GRR 50-year plan / 15-year plan study and the separate 1966 dune and berm construction projects precipitated from the lobbyists' efforts were touched on. At the August IBPB meeting, the board was asked to review Corner Sprill's August report. A decision from the Corps was anticipated by the end of August, but the decision has now been delayed. Anybody else?
I think that's it.
Okay. UNCW collaboration. Representatives from UNCW are preparing a proposal and scope of work to begin working on the vegetation study.
Could it back up just a second?
Sure.
Because I think that the way you worded that, it attributes that study directly to Pointer Sproul.
Yeah?
And I think that came to us jointly through Christine
Okay.
at the same time. So, I mean, if, to be accurate, I think the Wilmington District and Pointer Sproul is don't you think that's
Mhm.
right?
Precipitated from the lobbyist efforts and the Wilmington.
District. I mean, I know that we didn't discuss that in
Yeah.
the meeting, but that is how that came forward.
And that last sentence has now been delayed, is that really correct, or is it still a work in progress? The decision is still pending?
That's probably more accurate than it's still pending. I wouldn't say.
I mean, they didn't come and say, we're delaying this.
No.
I mean, it's just
Matter of fact,
still pending, we're still waiting.
We got the letter from the SECAP that says, thanks, Law, we got your letter, we're working on it.
Okay. Let me just read that paragraph again. The GRR 50-year plan, 15-year plan study, and the separate 1966 dune and berm construction project precipitated from the lobbyist efforts and the Wilmington District of the Corps of Engineers were touched on. At the August IBPB meeting, the board was asked to review Corner Sprill's August report. A decision from the Corps was anticipated by the end of August, but the decision is still pending.
Yep.
Anything else? Okay. we need to rework the UNCW collaboration, the next paragraph. What I have is representatives from UNCW are preparing a proposal and scope of work to begin working on the vegetation study and inlet changes document. So
Just
they
say
submitted-
have prepared, they have
Have,
prepared.
have
Have
provided
submitted?
or have submitted, yes.
A proposal and scope of work to begin working on the vegetation study and the inlet changes document. Town staff is reviewing this.
Yes.
Okay. Other updates. Keep up the dune signs which are approved in the adopted budget. They've arrived, but have been ordered. The annual beach monitoring report will be presented at the October BOC meeting. Meetings, the IBPD will be represented at the Brunswick County Shoreline Protection Meeting October 2nd and will be attending the American Shore and Beach Preservation Association, ASBPA, the national meeting, October 22nd through 25th in Myrtle Beach. The next regular IBPB meeting is scheduled for October 24th during the ASBCA conference, so we've got to change that.
Should we say the town staff is presenting at the AS meeting?
Well, it's more than town staff, it's ATM too, but just town hall, you can just say town hall beach is presented.
It's on Central Reach, right?
Yes.
Chrissy had already hit on the plant variety, the engagement with Steve Mercer, and are we doing something with that we should state, as well as the mats you talked about?
Under other updates, back up a little bit,
sorry.
Okay, mats will be ordered in the winter. How would you like to word
What
that?
was the high level on the plant variety?
Steve Mercer said beach grass was.
American beach grass and
Yep.
sand fence are the way to go to capitalize on what's going on
what's
right
already
now.
there.
Steve Mercer recommends sand fencing and ABG for this winter's work. This year's budget cycle, how would you like to?
I was gonna say, just taking into the thought process that we don't know how this is gonna play out, and if we end up doing that with what
With the
Sam fence,
reimbursement.
then we're gonna eat up the budget. So I would be careful about saying this. I mean, yes, it's supposed to happen in winter, but I just don't want the board to have hopes that then we're gonna have extra money in spring, because we may not, and we may. So
So how would you recommend we word that then?
Should we start it with the town management had an engagement post-Dorian with Steve Mercer?
And a ride through, a ride by, a little ride.
On vegetation status or something of that nature?
Town management had engagement with Steve Mercer on vegetation status post-Dorian.
Yes.
Is that vegetation and sand fence?
yes. Well, we did talk about sand fence briefly, but we were in like a 2-block section, so that big estimate of that I'm telling you about was his independent driving of the beach.
Okay.
So I would just say vegetation, because that was the reason for us to go out. He wanted to show me some of the variety that was in those sections.
Okay, town management had engagement with Steve Mercer on vegetation status post-Dorian. and recommends American beach grass and planting American beach grass and additional sand fencing.
Repairs and upgrades on the same fencing.
Could you back up just one second?
Yeah.
What did you say about the October meeting?
The last thing she said, and then we went backwards because people wanted to add stuff, but it was the next IBPV meeting will be on October 24th during the conference, and I know she had more after that, but then we went backwards.
Yep, we're gonna take that whole line out, and
Okay.
after it it says, and we will be attending the American Shore and Beach Preservation Association National Meeting on October 22nd through 25th in Myrtle Beach. The town of Holden Beach is presenting on the Central Reach at the conference, period, and that's all we've got right there.
Okay.
And then we were kind of starting another point here. The town management has had engagement with Steve Mercer on vegetation status, post-Dorian, and recommend repairs and upgrades to the sand fencing and planting American beach grass.
And that would be an add to the other updates paragraph,
Yeah, don't you guys think that needs to go up under the Dorian?
or
Well, 'cause we're
under
talking
Dorian.
Oh,
Yes?
when I reported on it during the status report, it was under the budget items because it's
Okay.
on the budget cycle. So if you could put it under there, that'd be great.
Which was your other updates?
I had UNCW, okay, other updates. All right.
The keep off the dune signs, the mats, and the plant.
Okay. So town management had engagement with Steve Mercer and on vegetation post-Dorian and recommend repair and upgrades to sand fencing and planting of ABG. And that would be up under updates. So then we go into meetings and we talk about those. And then we need to have, our meeting schedule has tentatively been changed.
November and December. To accommodate the holidays.
Well, in October. How about the board's meeting schedule for the remainder of the year?
It's tentatively changed.
To canceling October.
And moving November and December, advancing the dates for November and December a week. Isn't that what we did?
Yeah.
What else do we need to include? Anything else that we talked about that I didn't catch?
We talked about the inlet and beach hazard, but we kind of agree that that's a different arena that belongs in, so that info should come from somewhere else.
Okay.
That's the only thing I could think of.
Anything else you guys want to add? Okay. Very good. Anything else?
I'll just ask if you want to, as far as what I briefed to you, we talked about the SAC study, but you don't have to put that in your report to the board unless you want to. I went back up
Okay.
quickly while you said that to see if there was something that wasn't. So that's totally up to you.
That an update was provided and some information from their presentations as well was shared.
Okay. An update on the SAC study. Was presented. What else did you say?
Along with documentation and handouts.
Okay, we talked about that under status of beach and inlets, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And it was just one of the first things, right? Okay. Is there anything else you guys would like to add to the memo? Okay. Now, Christy, last month the memo didn't make the packet. Now, my question is, I think that the commissioners had said it wasn't going to be an agenda item, it was just going to be included in the packet.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to, if you want, discussion on that, you'll have to talk to Heather. As I understand it, she and Peter talked about how that would be included.
Okay.
And so it's a supplement and not in the agenda packet, but I don't know enough of the background on it to sit here and educate you on their decision. As he's the executive secretary and she's the clerk, so if you have questions on that, you may want to ask her.
Okay. Will do. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't you and I that.
No, it was
It
not.
wasn't us.
It wasn't us. I got it to her, and that was a decision on their level.
Okay, so,
That's pretty
can I
complicated.
get approval of the short report to the Board of Commissioners?
I approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we're all agreed on a consensus. Public comments? Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to add? All right, then we,
I make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
A second?
all those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you guys.